Hi everyone! Sorry, I can't get my camera to flip around, so this is my second attempt at a video. I'm doing this video because I have a video of the house from when we first looked at it 5 years ago. I've been posting a lot of pictures of when we first moved in, and so I've been trying to kind of do some befores and afters, and I thought the best way to do it would just be to share the video of when we first looked at the house. It's not a very good video. I move around a real lot in it, and I've had music put over it so you can't hear me babbling the whole time, but I'll try and be a little better of a filmographer this time. I apologize. My kitchen is a little messy, so we're going to kind of skim through that real quick. But let me flip the camera around so I can see what you guys are going to be seeing. So in the first video, you'll obviously see me come into this room, which it hasn't changed a lot. The wall color has changed and my furniture is in here. The kitchen, which is a little messy. We have the refrigerator and a Hoosier cabinet on this side. There was nothing on that side when we bought the house. The refrigerator was there. There was no dishwasher, and the refrigerator was real short. So we kind of turned that into the dishwasher coffee area. We've changed cabinet colors, and I've changed wall colors a few times. Something we added was the kind of china cabinet shelf thing here. It was just kind of dead space, so we took advantage of that. There was a door here, but it wasn't a swinging door, but originally the house had a swinging door there, so we got a swinging door put back on. In the other video, you'll see I come into this room, and it wasn't very bright in the house at the time, so it was hard to tell. The room had knotty pine paneling that had been painted pink, and then above it, they'd put Luan board with wallpaper glued to it, and the ceiling, there was a drop ceiling. It wasn't dropped real far, just a few inches, but it was an acoustic tile ceiling. This is the original beadboard in the room from when this was a kitchen. So this was behind the paneling. I'd like to say that plaster was behind there, but most of the plaster when we took down the paneling was completely destroyed. There was huge holes. The servant call system is still there. This plate shelf Walter put up so the servant call system didn't kind of just stand out like a weird thing on the wall. I added a fireplace mantle in here. This was not a fireplace. Everyone thinks it was. This was the chimney for the kitchen. You can kind of see a patch right there where the stovepipe used to go into it. This we just put here so that way we had, the chimney didn't look too odd. We wanted to put the TV up on something, so we were like, oh, we'll put it on a mantle and everyone will kind of just, it'll blend in. And it worked pretty well. Everyone thinks it's a real fireplace that we covered up for some reason. You can kind of see on the floor where the stove used to sit, it left a big mark. So whatnot. The orange color, everyone kind of was like, what made you pick orange? I picked the orange because this was the original color the plaster was painted in this room when it was the kitchen. It was orange. I did not do the ceiling in the original color, which was a mauve color. And the woodwork was pine that was done in an amber color, but after that, the first paint color on it was like an acid green. So it had orange walls, acid green woodwork, and a purpley mauve ceiling. So I had to be a little more stylish than that. So this room, it's a lot of the woodwork, such as these pieces right here, 90% of them were missing in this room. Like this particular one right here, this is an original, but all of this Walter had to create. That doorway had to be redone. That had some of the pieces, but kind of gives you an idea. It was kind of a hodgepodge. If you look through my pictures, you'll see photos of this room with massive crumbling holes in the wall. It was pretty bad. This particular little vestibule here, there was a bathroom door here at one time, a long, long time ago. There was a drop ceiling in here that came to about here. So all of this was hidden. That's my stencil work. There was some old paper up there. And the base molding was gone as well. The knotty pine paneling was over it. This stuff had they'd cut into it to put in the paneling, so Walter had to recreate kind of this part. The phone shelf was gone, but we could see markings on the wall that there had been a shelf there for the phone, and the box one used to be on the wall. So, moving on. As you guys know, the hall was kind of one of my big projects I'm going to zoom out a little bit actually to make this a little easier. There we go. The hall was one of my big projects for stripping the woodwork. Now, problem that I had is you'll see the doors, this door is not original to the house, but it's pretty old. So these frames on the door, I couldn't strip them because at one point in time, the doorway size was changed. We put it back to the original size, but it was changed. And when they did, they took down the pieces from this side and that side, and it was all painted white at the time, and they didn't pay attention to what was from what side. Well, then they started cutting pieces and changing the sizes and whatnot, so you can't flip them back around again. And unfortunately, some of these are from the kitchen side, so they're pine. So if I stripped them, I would have had pine and oak all mixed together, and so I had to leave them white. So that's why all of these have been left white, so it didn't look awkward. This big doorway, they did have pocket doors at one time. They were long gone when we got here. The doorway was probably about this much lower. The moldings were gone. There was a cheaper molding that had been put up because what happened was in the 40s, they arched the doorways. So there was no moldings at all. The owner before us had them squared, but not brought all the way back up, and she obviously couldn't find moldings to match, which isn't that hard to believe. This room was redwood paneling on all of the walls up to about here, and then it was burlap wallpaper. The crown molding was gone. This is new ceiling paper that we put on. It's hard to see the embossment. This light was always gas. They'd never electrified it. The pipe was still there, so we finally electrified it. The radiator in this room was gone. This came from Minnesota. I had to do quite a bit of work to get it looking nice. So all of the base molding in this room came out of a house in Grand Haven that was being knocked down. This woodwork Walter had to create to match the rest of the room. So it's done in new oak, but he did a really good job trying to find something with as tight a grain as possible. Obviously, this is not as tight a grain as what you'll see on something older like this, which has really super tight grain on it. This was all painted. Every inch of woodwork in the house was painted. The stairs were extremely difficult because there was an old black varnish on it and then white paint, and it was just a mess. This room I haven't really done a lot to. It's always been kind of the forgotten room. It too is oak underneath the white. I should have redone it, but I didn't. But all of this too was white and got redone. I'm going to pop into the vestibule real quick. Now, again, if you watch the other video, you'll see all these parts of the house previous to me working on them. This is the front door. I did do the other side of the front door too, but I'm not opening it. It's cold. I did this side of this door. It's really a labor of love. But again, there was baseboard heaters put in, so you can kind of see the holes from where those were. I got to find something to plug those with. This room also, the base molding that you see down here, Walter made those ones to match the ones in the house because they were gone. There was baseboard heaters in here, and the big radiator was gone. So we had this big radiator shipped in with the other one from Minnesota. It weighs about 700 pounds, so yeah. The moldings were not the same situation. Like I said, Walter had to create these moldings, and he did this door as well, and the opposite side of this door, which we'll get to in a bit. The fireplace at the time, when we bought the house, this was painted white, except for these dark pieces, but this was white. And the mirror was gone, and it had redwood panels in it that had been painted white. And the wall here was redwood panels painted white. All of the woodwork, again, was white. So the dark wood didn't look like that when we got it. The walls, you might think they're the same color as what was here, but they're actually not. They're actually photographing really bright in this video. The color is like a really cranberry color, as most of you know. It always looks fuchsia in photographs. The color when we bought it was like a brick red, but there had been stuff on the wall that had been painted around, and so we ended up having to do some stuff there. This doorway was lowered as well. I'm going to move on to that. This doorway was lowered as well, but it also had these side lights brought in, and so there was just a single door in the center. So the doorway was all cut back out, and unfortunately no pocket doors remained. Wish I could have found some, but I didn't. So that's the living room. There was also, the ceiling in here was asbestos. There's two layers. There was a pellety ceiling, and underneath that was the asbestos ceiling, which I removed. There's actually supposed to be another molding on the ceiling, but I just never redid it. It wasn't here or anything, but I could see the scars of where it was. So we had the centerpiece, the medallion put in, and the light was a gift from my parents. Let's see. This room, again, same thing. The woodwork was all light, painted white. The overmantel to this was gone, so we bought this piece at something and put it up there. This had been stripped, but it was never really finished. It was kind of raw looking, so I refinished it myself, and I used a tinted shellac to make it a little darker, so it's kind of a brownish shellac that's on there. The dining room plate shelf was gone, and we used some drawings that we found on the walls of what it looked like, and some indentations, and Walter copied really well to make the plate shelf identical to the silhouette, like especially on the doors you could see where they had been painted around, so you could see the very details of it. Now, as for my wallpaper, I picked that. I really wanted it, and then it turned out that the original paper, which was still stuffed behind that fireplace a little bit, was a red damask, so that was kind of cool. A lot of people think this one is wallpaper. It is a paper. It's a liner paper, so I have a smooth-looking wall. But I painted it black, and all of the two-tone gold, that was a stencil that we ordered from England that took me a few days to do. This ceiling as well had a sprayed-on pellet kind of ceiling. It was probably about a half-inch thick on the ceiling. The molding up there was gone, kind of like the other room was supposed to have a molding like this. There was a molding which may have been a bit fatter than the one that's up there, but it's what we went with. I wanted to do I was trying to copy a particular ceiling paper when I did the colors on the ceiling. I just never really ended up doing it. I kind of liked just the solids because the room gets a little busy after a while. The house had a servant call system, some of which sometimes works upstairs and sometimes doesn't. Under the dining room table, that one wasn't working anymore, but we got that fixed up and got a piece for it, and it works. This room, I think, was really our biggest restoration work. There was other rooms that were in much worse shape, but decoratively, I think we did the most work here. All of the windows, for the most part, had to have the weights restrung on them. They had been broken and things didn't work anymore, and I had some new storm windows put on. So I'm going to skip the bathroom because in the video from 5 years ago, you'll see where I struggled trying to get the lights on. And yeah, the woodwork up here has all been redone, refinished. This was where the servant stairs to the kitchen were, but they're no longer there. It's just a closet. Now, you may question my odd choice of color on the woodwork up here. The woodwork was originally a shellac finish, but it's pine, and stripping pine can be a lot of fun, let me tell you. So we didn't end up redoing that. The color I bought, this is called Mochaccino, and in paint form, it looks very brown and kind of a tannish gray. Up here, for some reason, it turns green. Everything up here turns a different color. We've painted so many. This was like the 5th color I tried, and we finally just got tired of, no matter what we did, no matter what light bulbs we put in, colors always look weird up here. The floor was carpeted at the time, so the inlay was kind of a nice surprise. Now the runner, what's really cool is there's these tiny little metal tubes, 26 inches apart, going all the way down the hall and going this way, and they were designed for an anchor to hold the rug. It was a cleat system that almost had like a screw that went into it. But they had the tubes in the floor, but the anchors were long gone. Well, it turns out drywall anchors work perfectly. So when people see screws in my floor, they're like, oh my God, you screwed that to your floor. It's not really screwed into the wood. It's screwed into these old metal anchors in the floor, and that's what they're designed for. So you can take this rug up, and you'll have no damage to your floor, which is kind of nice. This room, Titus has been sleeping in the bed, so it's a little messy. This room, the only thing I did was I repainted all the woodwork with a new layer of oil-based paint. One thing throughout the house was a lot of the hinges and window locks had been painted multiple times, and they were crusty and dirty, and they got boiled in my crock pot. Karen Panazzo can tell you. She'd come over, and there was the crock pot always on the back porch cooking away. But, you know, it's the house just had a lot of great features, you know, that just needed some maintenance. You know, this is kind of also my sewing area as well as a guest room. So This room had blue wallpaper. It doesn't anymore. This room hasn't changed a whole lot. Again, it was just, draperies and things like that, got spruced up. Now, this room, I did strip a little bit of the woodwork, and there were some very dark mahogany-colored pieces. But it wasn't all of the pieces, and it was getting very difficult to figure out. They had a habit of using leftover pieces in a room that was going to be painted. They would use whatever leftover pieces they had from other rooms because it looked the same once it was all painted. So it was getting hard to tell if this room was supposed to be painted or not, or if it had two-tone woodwork, and I didn't want to walk around the house scraping the paint, all over the place, making a mess. So down here is where I kept finding dark pieces, and then over here there wasn't one. It got a little confusing. For what this stuff looks like when it's stripped properly, this is kind of what it looks like. That's that brown shellac that I used downstairs to kind of give it the color that you can't really get anymore. I had to have that one specially made. This room has not really changed one bit. It's, just lay off ease. Anyone who's a fan of, First Wives Club, lay off ease. Anyway, so moving on. My bedroom is a mess, okay? I've got laundry everywhere. Bedroom, we stripped the paper. I could see where there used to be a picture rail, which I never replaced, but I painted the room, dividing it there. There was a fireplace there at one time. I'm going to leave this room because it's messy. There was a fireplace there at one point in time, and unfortunately it was gone long before we owned the house. The bathroom, obviously bathrooms don't change a whole lot. I took down the wallpaper and changed that. But this is my messy bathroom. I really should have cleaned the house before doing this. So that's really the whole house. It's been a labor of love. So I guess thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy this. All right, guys. Bye.